Hi guys, it is Aoife from Words of Clover and I'm here with a new video today. And today I wanted to talk about something that I was thinking about recently, and that was kind of, I guess, when it comes to trends or particular authors or books or genres that kind of go in and out of fashion. And I was thinking about how long I've been doing BookTube now. This year in May I have been officially been doing BookTube for 9 years. So next year I will be doing it for 10 years, and that is kind of crazy to think about. So yeah, I'll definitely have to try and remember to do something next year for my 10th anniversary. If anyone has any ideas, let me know. Maybe like the 10 best books that I've read because of BookTube over the last 10 years or something like that. But yeah, I was thinking, obviously I've been doing this for 9 years. I have seen a lot of trends and genres, authors, titles come and go in and out of popularity. Some people have there are some authors that have really stayed on top of the charts for a very long time. There's ones that were really popular and I never hear anyone talk about before. Particular genres that have become really popular or aren't really popular anymore as well. And yeah, it's just been really interesting to kind of follow and think about. And I wanted to talk about some of those kind of old books that might, make some people who might be here as long as me, might make you feel a little bit nostalgic for those days of BookTube. So the first author is someone who people still read, and that is actually Libra Bray. I think for right now, she's quite really well known for the Diviners series, which is one that I've also read and really enjoyed. I first started it when I first read the Diviners when it came back way back. Must be 5-6 years ago now maybe, and it took me a while to actually read the rest of the series. I only finished them last year, and yeah, Libra Bray is someone who has been quite popular for quite a while. She one of her books that was really popular when I first started BookTube was A Great and Terrible Beauty, and that was actually one that I had read pre-BookTube and actually hadn't really enjoyed a lot, but it is one that I've always said I would like to go and reread it and see if, being a little bit older or just coming into it with a new perspective, maybe I would like it a little bit more. And then one that was really popular as well around the early days of my own BookTube journey was Beauty Queens, which is kind of a satirical comedy survivor story that Libra Bray wrote about a bunch of beauty queens, a few of them all different types of people, and they get stuck on this kind of desert island, almost like this Lost style type of book, where yeah, their plane crashes. Basically they're stuck on this desert island and they have to figure out how to survive, but then there are all these kind of other conspiracy things happening, and it's oh, is this all planned? Is this a bigger part of something else? Are there other people on the island that could be watching them? So it has kind of Lost vibes in that sense. But yeah, I remember quite enjoying this. Again, it's one that I wonder, reading it in my early 20s versus maybe reading it now, I'm oh, would I pick up on more things reading that now than I did back then? I don't know. But yeah, it was one I enjoyed. It's one that the cover of I still really love. I'll put a picture up of it. But yeah, Libra Bray for me is definitely one of those author names that reminds me of the old days of BookTube as well, even though she is obviously still continuing on into the newer age of BookTube. Someone who is the person who I normally actually think of really strongly when I think about 9-10 years ago when I first started BookTube, and the genres that people were really into was definitely YA. I feel a lot of people back then we were in our kind of early to mid 20s, and then a lot of the people who would have started around the same time as me or were very popular around the time that I started, we're all kind of in our 30s now, and obviously life changes and you go into different versions of life, and that's why I feel we've really seen a shift from YA, particularly the people who I follow anyway. I'm seeing there's a really big shift from YA to adult books, and fantasy literary fiction is a lot bigger than it used to be when I first started. And yeah, when I first started, YA was the genre that everyone was reading. So someone who I always think of when I think about the author that was being talked about a lot when I first started, who I would have never heard of if it wasn't for BookTube, was Morgan Matson. I actually don't know if she has brought out a book in the last 2 or 3 years, but back when I started 9 years ago, the ones that were really popular were Since You've Been Gone, and then she brought out The Unexpected Everything, I think it was, and also Amy and Roger's Epic Detour, which is one that I've read. So I've read The Unexpected Everything, Amy and Roger, and Since You've Been Gone, and then she also has Second Chance Summer, which people also really love, though I have heard that one can be quite sad and a little bit melancholy. But yeah, she just writes young people and experiences quite well. I think I really enjoyed her books. She always has kind of like a, is it just Amy and Rogers that all her books kind of have playlists and stuff like that? I think that was kind of like a thing for a while in books as well. They would come with particular playlists that like, yeah, that either the authors maybe had listened to while they read the book, or songs that were kind of like mentioned, or like, you know, had something to do with the story of the book. And yeah, Amy and Roger definitely did have that, but I don't know if the other ones did. But yeah, this is definitely, she's just someone who I just think of when I think about original BookTube for me. And yeah, I would actually love to see if she has like brought out anything else recently that like I might enjoy. And yeah, if anyone hasn't like read her and you kind of want something that's just kind of like fun, summery, her books are very summery as well. They're quite like seasonal in terms of like, they're definitely ones that you could bring on holiday or like read out in the garden in the sun. Like they're very summer. They're normally quite like summer location, or like set during the summer months as well. So that was something I really enjoyed about them too. One that we used to be talked about all the time, that I did actually have the book, I actually don't know if I still have it somewhere because I never actually read it, and that was the Falling Kingdoms series by Morgan Rhodes. And this was huge back when I started BookTube. Everyone was reading it. It was like the fantasy series. I don't know how much there is. I think there was like a longer, it was more than a trilogy anyway. It was a series of books that I also think there might have been a spin-off at one point as well of these. I actually don't really know what they were about, but everyone always used to describe them as like YA Game of Thrones, like that. It was like fantasy for Game of Thrones lovers, but like of the YA genre. And yeah, everyone really loved these. Particularly I remember Thoughts on Tomes loved these. Samantha from Thoughts and Tomes, who always does really great fantasy recommendations. And yeah, they were very popular at the time. And I don't know whether this has kind of fallen off, whether Morgan Rhodes still writes. But yeah, I very rarely see that name come up anymore, but that is definitely something that I think about. If I hear Morgan Rhodes, or if I think back to the books that everyone was talking about when I first started, Morgan Rhodes and the Falling Kingdom series is definitely one of them. And then for a few others, the people will probably know of, Marie Lu is still quite popular. She has she brought out a new series last year that people are actually quite enjoying. But when I first started, her Legend series was really popular. Trilogy was really popular. It was very much in the vein of like the Hunger Games and Divergent, and yeah, like it was kind of that dystopian era of YA that like everyone was kind of coming up with these like slightly dystopian-esque YA books. And I actually really liked Legend. It's actually one that I would like to reread again. And yeah, I actually really like the whole trilogy. So they are ones that maybe eventually I would like to reread again. There are like some of those books that I read, like, you know, as I said, quite a long time ago now, that I would love to revisit. And I have been finding quite a lot of enjoyment of rereading via audiobook. So maybe I will try and find the audiobook of Legend and reread them and revisit that world, as that is one that I did really enjoy. And it's one that I had on my shelf for quite a while, though I can't remember now again if I unhauled them. But yeah, it was one that I really liked. Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken as well. This was turned into a movie as well. Again, another type of not really dystopian, kind of more like sci-fi-esque YA with kids with like powers. Again, not kind of slightly Hunger Games inspired, but yeah, this one was one that I did really enjoy. I don't think I ever actually finished this. I don't know if there was a trilogy or 4 books together. I don't know if I ever actually finished it, even though I really enjoyed those books, because at the time when I was reading them, because of the type of books they were, like, I feel like it's much easier to, like in Ireland anyway, and the UK probably, it's a lot easier to access, say, like this type of American published fiction now. Like it's a lot more broad in terms of like what will be out in the stores in the US will also be the same in the UK, and big brand stores in Ireland as well. Where even like 9 years ago, it was actually much harder to find these books in the stores. You like wouldn't have really have found, say, like Morgan Rhodes, Morgan Matson, these ones, Alexandra Bracken books, couldn't find them anywhere. And the ones that I did end up getting were normally probably like on Amazon or the book depository at the time, and yeah, it was quite hard. It was much harder to find books, and as well, like on the library, or like audiobook systems, they weren't as good for the library as well. And I wouldn't have had an audible account or anything back then, so yeah, it was much harder to sometimes source these books. So I think I read a couple, the first two or three of the Darkest Mind series. I just never got around to the last one because I think I just couldn't find it anywhere. And I think I had tried to buy it on Amazon, but it wasn't even available for me to buy this side of the world. And I think I actually tweeted, I think I might have tweeted Alexandra Bracken about it, and she was saying like that, yeah, like it was some sort of like publisher thing that I don't know whether it was a rights thing or not, but yeah, they basically weren't sold in this on this part of the world at the time. Though I'm sure they are now since the movie came out and everything. But by the time the movie came out, I did watch it in the cinema, but then I don't think I ever like went and read the rest of the books. But yeah, that's like, yeah, something interesting for me to share too. But yeah, that's definitely kind of, they remind me kind of like of OG BookTube time as well. And then ones that I actually want to talk about as well are ones I absolutely loved. Again, that golden YA era of BookTube, I feel. I actually never got the first book in this. I think I read the first book from the library, and I have the first or the next two, which so it is the Starcross series by Josephine Angelini, and I think it was this one I actually won. I don't know if they still do it, but Goodreads used to do these like giveaways for books, and you could enter them. I don't know if they still do it. And you might be like, like new books or arcs and stuff like that. You could be entered into a giveaway, and they would choose people at random, and I would never get chosen because of being in Ireland. It was obviously like they weren't going to be sending books to Ireland, and this was before like I would have reached a certain amount of subscribers as well, where I then reached out to publishers to be put on review lists. And then I actually did Starcrossed, I think it was this one that I ended up getting, and because I'd obviously gotten it, I hadn't read the first one, so I went and got the first one, managed to find the first one in the library, and absolutely loved it. And I do have the third one as well. But this was basically a Helen of Troy and Paris kind of retelling in like YA urban fantasy, I guess. And we are basically following these two teenagers who live in this town, and the girl called Helen, she comes and like moves into the town. It's very like, it's almost like a Forks-esque type of town, kind of a little bit inspired by Twilight, I would say. And it's kind of like, I think it's like that they keep being reborn, and the Helen and Paris keep being reborn, as well as like all these other people from the Legend of Troy. And it's kind of like they're almost doomed to fall in love and make the same mistakes, and the tragedy to happen over and over and over again. And I do think that, from what I remember, the Greek gods are involved in this as well. And I remember just being absolutely hooked onto this trilogy and really, really loving it. And it's definitely one that I should read again. And looking at these now, I might make it a priority by the end of the year or the start of next year to try and reread these books and see if they hold up. Because like, as I said, it's been like 8 years since I've read these books, so they might not have held up as well as they do in my head. I do have a lot of the kind of the YA books that I really, really loved back when I first started BookTube, that have kind of been sitting unread, on a reread, that sometimes you're kind of afraid to pick up again in case they don't do well in our new kind of society now, and the way like some thinking, language, things like that have improved for the better. And sometimes these books don't hold up as well, but hopefully they do. But yeah, this one will be a really fun one, I think, to read and see if I still enjoy them as much. I just wanted to share a few of those books with you. I don't know if anyone has been around that long or remembers some of these books like really doing the rounds back then. I would love to know, when you first started BookTube, were there any really big popular books or authors at the time that you just don't see people talk about anymore, or that you wish more people would read now? Yeah, I guess not everyone can have the staying power of Sarah J Maas, unfortunately. But yeah, as I said, I think things flow like that, and who knows, in a couple of years some of these books could get a resurgence again, or these authors, they could come out with something new. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to see. So yeah, leave all your comments down below. I would love to chat, and I'll see you guys again next time.